Hello, welcome to another edition of the MSDW podcast. Today we'll revisit a week's worth of Microsoft Dynamics stories, including a new look at the Common Data Model, some post-game analysis of last week's Worldwide Partner Conference, Azure Security Center, and several industry wins. I'm your host, Jason Gumpert, editor at msdynamicsworld.com, and joining me is Dan Morneau, assistant editor. Let's get started.
Thanks, Jason. First up from this week, Microsoft positions Dynamics 365 Common Data Model as pragmatic path to broader business apps.
All right, so a bit of a mouthful there, but we had a chance to interview Mike Ehrenberg, technical fellow at Microsoft and head of Dynamics ERP R&D, and also one of the primary architects, I guess you'd say, of the Common Data Model, which is sort of this next generation of business database. It's a little hard to explain, a little hard to maybe understand. It's caused a little bit of confusion, but it's really what Microsoft has been working on to try to sort of bridge all the Dynamics products and do something that they couldn't do, let's say, with Project Green. It's something that's, as in Ehrenberg's words, a little less ambitious. It's not trying to merge the products, but it's trying to create, I guess, a layer over them. They are well into the development process. I think he described it to me as a mature version 1 or a mature alpha version, if I'm recalling his words for it. But they've got working code. They're testing millions of lines, millions of rows of data with it, and it'll be a piece that will connect Dynamics products with pre-built integrations. It will also allow for connectors and gateways, is I think the wording he used, for other third-party systems. And the main use cases people should be thinking about right now include mainly solutions that would touch more than one system. So if you're going to be a purely an app for AX specifically, you're likely just going to need standard AX development principles. If you're going to do something that's AX and Salesforce, or well, maybe Salesforce is a bad example, but like SAP and Dynamics CRM, or I guess AX and Salesforce, or something where you want to tie multiple systems together for some workload. That's where Common Data Model will be pretty interesting.
Next up was a recap, this from Gus Krabenborg of Quattro Business Solutions. WPC 2016 Notebook, a look back at 11 big stories for Microsoft Dynamics partners.
Yeah, so Gus historically does a WPC post-event report that he publishes, and I've been following those for several years, and he'll often write about some of those findings for us too, and he did that this week after the event. He had, I think, 11 takeaways from the event. And some of them were probably things that were not a surprise, but others are a little more contentious, or maybe a little bit more edgy. He believes Dynamics products have finally made a revival, whereas a few years ago they were only mentioned begrudgingly. This year they are front and center, and I think he's very enthusiastic and positive about Dynamics 365, and he sees ISVs as taking a more important role in Microsoft strategy than ever before. So worth a read. There's I think I just touched on 3 out of the 11, so worth reading the other 8 that are in the article.
Next up was Azure Security Center, generally available, promises real-time threat response. Now, recall that Azure Security Center was announced in November of last year. This is when Satya Nadella and Microsoft in general did a kind of a stump speech about its operational security posture. The whole idea was to more or less clarify what Microsoft was doing, and they described at the time the aims of Azure Security Center as real-time threat detection and response. So when the threat is at the window, not when it's ensconced in your network for several months. So that is general availability now. There's a host of new detections available with an improved ability to detect lateral movement, outgoing attacks, malicious scripts, also security incidents, which are analytics that kind of connect the dots between distinct security alerts. So here you're looking for a pattern, here you're looking for you're connecting the dots between several events on the outside to identify a concerted attack, and also several events from the inside that identify some kind of malfeasance. So that was pretty compelling. Azure Security Center is designed for easy deployment and configuration, they say, of course they say, and this is compelling, it includes an inline engine to identify add-ons where specific security controls are needed. They didn't elaborate on what those are, but I'm guessing they're, governance, risk, and compliance type of add-ons add-ons as well as industry-specific ones. Solutions are available from, among other partners, Barracuda, Checkpoint, F5, Fortinet, Imperva, Trend Micro. So there's already a kind of an app store, once again, built in line with Azure Security Center. Next up, Microsoft announces FY16 Q4 earnings powered by the cloud. It wasn't a bad quarter for Microsoft, wasn't a bad year. They met analysts' expectations this quarter. I don't believe they did last quarter. And they ended the day with stock up the other day. So commercial cloud annualized revenue run rate, this is what they led with. Commercial cloud annualized revenue run rate exceeds $12.1 billion. Dynamics held pretty steady. Azure soared, but Windows 10 revenue deferrals hurt. Let's see, looking down, or drilling down rather into the results, revenue in productivity and business processes, and this is where Dynamics sits, grew by 5%. Pretty respectable. I think it was 6% last quarter to $7 billion. Dynamics products and cloud services revenue specifically grew 6%, with CRM online paid seats growing more than 2.5 times year over year. Pretty impressive. Office 365 commercial revenue growth was up 54%, and revenue in Intelligent Cloud grew 7%, but Azure revenue alone grew 102%, with Azure compute usage more than doubling year over year. So that was a pretty impressive, a decent quarter for Microsoft and a decent year.
Yeah, it seems like analysts took the news well and saw it as a positive sign. There were certainly some in the financial space that looked at these results and said, "Why are you using so many of these non-GAAP metrics to fill up your announcement here? And why are some of these non-GAAP numbers seem sort of different than they have in the past?" So this was not a quarter without some questions and some controversy, at least from some quarters. And I think I read one commentator say it was one of the best managed announcements he's ever seen in terms of getting the right message out, and that's again around cloud moving in the right direction, moving, I guess, at the pace that maybe Microsoft would like to show it moving at, so that they can reach some of Nadella's goals over the next couple of years in terms of how much of the business is made up of cloud revenue. I think that Dynamics CRM Online metric is one that you always see stats on that, and the paid seats growing. I think it's worth continuing to watch. I don't know that was as high as they wanted it. I know that in FY 2016, Microsoft set very aggressive revenue goals for CRM Online, and while that was certainly growth, we don't know if it was as much growth as they wanted.
Indeed. Last year the results were considered a bit tepid, and I think there was something like $11 billion adjustments and deferments because of that blasted phone, which Microsoft is in the process of offloading. So this could have been a great year, but this year those adjustments and deferments was because of Windows 10 revenue deferrals of about $9 billion, I believe. So put it all together, and I wonder what it'll be next year.
Yeah, and not to harp on CRM Online, because all I have for real data is what was in the announcement. But in chatting with folks at WPC, I think the things to watch for there, because it is a product they like to announce growth on every quarter. It seems like two things to watch for our churn, which I know is a very important metric in getting that number down for CRM Online, which is people have varying theories on just how high it is. And then the other thing we want to watch for is whether people are making their sales goals on CRM Online. From what I've heard, it was a mixed bag in 2016.
Then we had three very vertical specific stories. First was in food and bev and also in government. And this story is liquor control behind Alpha People's $9 million Microsoft Dynamics AX deal with New Hampshire. Turns out that Alpha People has a system developed to support state-run operations like New Hampshire's Liquor Commission, which has 17 retail locations. So Alpha People created a specific solution for liquor control states like New Hampshire, and on the last day of June, this is when Alpha People announced the deal. It turns out, too, that somehow Alpha People managed to wangle a 10-year commitment with New Hampshire. I guess that's the nature of a public works project. So bravo to Alpha People for securing a pretty sweet contract.
Yeah, I would say that is a very nice win for them, and another good AX for retail win. From what I understand of it, AX continues to build up a nice portfolio of retail clients on the higher end. I mean, New Hampshire does, what is it, $600 million a year in revenue for its liquor business? Yeah, 650. And living in the next state over, I do shop at New Hampshire liquor stores every now and then when maybe I'm on vacation or something. And I don't remember what their POS system looks like, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was yellow and falling apart. I really don't recall. I'm gonna have to take a closer look next time. Maybe I'll get back up there before they replace it with nice modern AX-based retail POS terminals there.
Yeah, they were, I have been known to cross the border as well, and I might have visited one of those establishments all of a week ago, and I can say that, it is a tad primitive, and it took 3 tries to read my card, which was brand new, so, it was about due.
I think the other interesting takeaway from this is that they are going with AX 2012 R3, not the new AX, but they have an option to upgrade to the new AX later. I can't say I'm all that surprised by that, given that they may not be ready for public cloud. They're going to be running on sort of a private Azure instance, from what it sounds like here, and holding that option in reserve for later, when presumably there'll be some really good migration tools later on. And AX 2012 R3, not to get off on too much of a tangent, but it is continuing to see development and enhancements and bug fixes and all sorts of active stuff for quite a while now. So not really much of a risk with going with the sort of one version back release.
Interesting you mention that, because the R3 edition, AX R3, comes up in the next story. This is sort of an agriculture, budgeting, and wholesaling story. Cicada Seed shops about, sticks with Microsoft Dynamics AX to improve budgeting. Cicada Seeds is, if you were a farmer, if you were a gardener, this is a name that you would know very well. It's a large operation, Japanese company, of course, with a large U.S. operation, and they are implementing Dynamics AX 2012 R3 to, well, actually they did that, but the big story here is that Cicada was shopping around for a budgeting solution, couldn't find one, was suffering because AX wasn't any good at budgeting, and suddenly discovered that, this latest version is marvelous at budgeting. Cicada had looked at a number of different solutions which had a depth of functionality, but they sort of decided against them for reasons of lack of good end user experience, the effort needed to gain user acceptance, and simply the cost. So they wound up going with Dynamics AX which now includes a managed budgeting process that integrates with financials, human resources, Excel, and with a sort of a full suite of ERP capabilities. That was, once again, interesting take. Here they are shopping for a good budgeting solution, didn't realize they had one installed.
Yeah, agreed. It is a nice, even though, again, it's a case study that focuses on the previous release of AX. It talks to how far the product's come, and having a budget planning solution that can meet the needs of a fairly large business that had, from the sound of it, some complex needs.
Next up is a financial technology or a fintech story, embracing CRM initiative in banking, financial services, and insurance.
All right, so and this piece comes from Pani Harito from Mint in South Africa. They are CRM specialists, and it's looking at the banking, financial services, and insurance industry and how CRM can serve some of their most pressing needs. The piece looks at sort of the pressures that they're under in the BFSI industry for meeting customer needs while maintaining regulatory compliance, and how some companies, and maybe they could have even stated this more strongly, but newer companies in the space are getting ready to eat the lunch of the older players who haven't invested in more modern solutions that help make banking, make financial business that you have to do easier and less painful and more efficient. I've had the opportunity to do a few banking transactions, throughout the normal course of the last year, and some of them have been very good, and some of them have been terrible. And it's really a question of the kinds of systems that these institutions are investing in, and are they making them really friendly, and are they doing things to meet consumers' needs. So I think this piece is right on target. They talk about some of the specifics of the industry if you're thinking about it from within and working within the industry. So worth a read and thinking about the CRM requirements that this one particular area needs to get up to speed on, I guess.
Next up, and it's interesting, you talked about AX for retail and its strengths a couple of stories ago. Well, suppose you don't want AX. Suppose you don't even want ERP. Retail Realm releases Dynamics RMS Alternative. Turns out that with support for Dynamics Retail Management System sunsetting, some support might have sunset on July 10th. Retail Management Hero, that's the new product, is aimed at providing retailers a next-gen point-of-sale solution. This is from Retail Realm, software developer and a Microsoft Dynamics distributor, and it's released Retail Management Hero, or RMH, worldwide already. This is not a Dynamics product. This is not a Microsoft product. It's being offered by Retail Realm as an alternative. It's kind of a standalone inventory management and point-of-sale software.
Yeah, we don't typically write about new product releases that aren't tied to Dynamics, but in this case, just decided to make an exception because coming from Retail Realm and Retail Hero, this is basically one more step in the the process of rounding out the suite of offerings that people coming off Dynamics RMS are going to need. So I thought it was worth covering in that sense. Not everyone who wants to get off RMS is going to look at Dynamics AX for retail and think it's the right match for them, especially on the smaller end. So these are two companies that have a lot of Dynamics experience with RMS, with AX. And, from the looks of it, they've simply developed a tool that, uses what they know, but uses it for without the involvement of any core Dynamics products. So worth noting because it does involve current Dynamics RMS customers and current Dynamics partners who are, still very active in selling Dynamics-focused products as well.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Retail Realm offers among its numerous solutions Dynamics AX for retail, but this one, RMH, is specifically going at those mid-sized retailers and small retailers. So here you're not going for Macy's or JCPenney's or Cabela's. You're going for a convenience, grocery store, sporting goods, wine and spirits, ironically. So that was
not something that the New Hampshire Liquor Board would probably buy, but something that a single liquor store or someone who owns a couple of stores in Massachusetts who doesn't have that kind of liquor control thing might do instead.
As a matter of fact, there was one other interesting story this week. Also not Microsoft, also not Dynamics, but Epicor has finally succumbed. Epicor was purchased by KKR Ventures, by the venture capital firm KKR for $3.3 billion. They were one of the last holdouts. This was a mid-range solution that sort of refused to be acquired, sort of refused to go down, and who knows? Who knows where it's going to go from here? You kind of hope that KKR allows Epicor to be Epicor.
Yeah, it's got a long history. It's got a sizable customer base, and I think people watching can only hope that it does work out for the best.
So next week, what have you got coming up, Jason?
We've got a couple more webcasts. This week was a busy webcast week. We had 4 or 5 very good educational sessions focused on AX or CRM. Next week we have sessions from some vendors looking at best practice on time tracking and on budgeting that I am looking forward to. Also looking at perhaps some interesting pieces coming up on the future and probably the past too of Dynamics AX and BI. So that's something I'm looking forward to getting out there.
I will be working on, rather, a pretty interesting case study of the Portland Trailblazers using Dynamics CRM to keep the fans coming. They're so tightly wired to individual customers with CRM that they're able, for example, to identify buying patterns and renewals to season ticket holders, so that they're able to see somebody who's waffling and able to get on the phone with them or e-blast them. So that'll be a pretty compelling case study.
Sports and entertainment cases are always very interesting, relatable, but also just very interesting strategic uses of CRM.
And that is one complex business. That is, when you think of it, yeah, you've got an entire stadium full of potential customers. This story, they promise that they've got an idea of pretty much about everybody who's sitting in those seats and what their buying patterns and intentions are. So that'll be interesting.
All right. Well, this has been the MSDW podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to be on the podcast, maybe you're an ISV with a product release or a consultant with a case study, or maybe a VAR with a unique slant on Dynamics product news or company direction, drop us a line. I'm Jason Gumpert. You can reach me at jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com.
And I'm Dan Morneau, Assistant Editor, and I am at DMAURNO@msdynamicsworld.com.
Until next time, we're MS Dynamics World signing off.